A worn-out single mom was simply trying to help a blind man who seemed lost and overwhelmed. That small, decent act, it ended up costing her the one job she desperately needed to take care of her daughter. But then, at exactly 3 a.m., her phone rang, and what she heard would turn her entire life upside down. The U.S. military had just surrounded her apartment building, and a general was waiting to speak with her. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Not Just a Stories. Let's get into it. Emily's feet throbbed as she restocked energy drinks in the quick-stop fridge. Just one more hour of her night shift left, and she could finally collapse in her tiny apartment. The night shift pay wasn't great, but it was just enough to afford after-school care for her 9-year-old daughter, Lily. Working nights wasn't ideal, but single moms don't get a lot of options. The store's bell jingled. Emily looked up. A middle-aged man stood there in dark sunglasses, tapping cautiously with a white cane. Something about how he moved felt off, more hesitant than most visually impaired customers she'd met. "Hello?" he called out, his voice edged with frustration. "Is anyone working here?" Emily set the drink case down quickly. "Yes, sir, I'm right here. How can I help?" The man's shoulders eased a bit at the sound of her voice. "I just need a few basic things," he said. "I hate to ask, but I'm still adjusting to this." He vaguely motioned toward his eyes. "It's no problem at all," Emily replied, stepping toward him. "I'd be happy to help you find anything you need." "Thanks. I'm Jack," he said, extending his hand a bit to the left. "Emily," she said gently, guiding his hand to hers. "What can I help you find today?" "Just some aspirin, bottled water, and maybe a sandwich if you've got it." Emily glanced toward the front counter. Her manager, Ryan, was supposed to be there watching the register, but as usual, he was probably in the back office scrolling through his phone. The employee handbook clearly stated cashiers were never to leave the front unattended, but she wasn't about to let this man fumble through the store alone. "Let me grab those things for you," she said, guiding Jack through the aisles. As they walked, Jack explained that he'd recently lost his vision and was still learning to manage everyday tasks on his own. "My daughter would lose her mind if she knew I came out alone," he said with a crooked smile. "But I've been leaning on others for months. I just wanted to prove to myself I could do one simple thing." Emily thought of her own father, who had passed after a long battle with Parkinson's. "I get that," she said quietly. "My dad was the same way." When they got back to the register, Jack fumbled for his wallet. "Sorry," he muttered. "I still can't tell the bills apart." Emily saw the mix of 20s and 1s in his hands. "It's okay. Let me help." "What the hell is going on here?" Ryan's voice cut sharply through the silence. Emily turned. Her manager stood at the end of the aisle, arms crossed, face flushed with irritation. "I'm just helping this customer," Emily began. "I can see that," Ryan snapped. "You left the register unattended for over 5 minutes. That's a fireable offense, and you know it." "Sir," Jack stepped forward. "She was helping me, because I asked." "Not your concern," Ryan interrupted harshly, then turned to Emily. "And you? Going through his wallet? Are you kidding me?" "I wasn't," Emily said, heart pounding. "He asked me to help identify the bills." "Sure he did," Ryan sneered. "Look, I've been looking for a reason to clean house. You're too soft. Always bending the rules for people. This is a business, not a charity." Emily felt her face flush. "He's blind, Ryan. What was I supposed to do? Not my problem. And not yours anymore either. You're fired. Get your things." Now Jack stood motionless, his face unreadable behind the sunglasses. "Sir, I must insist it's okay," Emily cut in, resting a hand on his arm. "It's not worth it." She turned to Ryan. "Let me finish helping him, then I'll go." Her hand shook as she helped Jack sort the bills. When they were done, she quietly slipped him her phone number. "If you ever need help again, just call. I don't work here anymore, obviously, but I'm usually around." Jack's hand found hers and gave it a light squeeze. "I'm so sorry about your job." Emily smiled faintly. He couldn't see it. "It's okay. Something better will come." But as she gathered her few belongings, she silently wondered how she'd make rent that month. Jobs that matched her schedule were almost impossible to find in a small town. Out in the cool night air, Emily finally let herself cry. Just a few quiet tears. Lily was spending the night at the neighbor's, which at least gave Emily a few hours to figure out how she was going to explain losing her job. "I saw what happened in there." The voice startled her. Emily spun around. A woman in her 30s leaned casually against a black sedan parked near the edge of the lot. She wore crisp business attire, surprisingly sharp for the late hour. "Excuse me?" Emily asked, instinctively stepping back. "With the blind gentleman?" the woman clarified. "Most people wouldn't have done what you did. It wasn't anything special." Emily replied cautiously. "Anyone would have helped him." The woman gave a knowing smile. "We both know that's not true." She stepped forward and handed Emily a simple white business card. "My name is Captain Diane Reynolds. If you're open to a new job opportunity, give me a call tomorrow." Emily accepted the card reflexively. It had only a name and phone number, no company, no title. "What kind of job?" she asked, eyeing the woman warily. "The kind that values people who do the right thing, even when it costs them," Captain Reynolds said, cryptically. She opened her car door, then paused. "Mr. Winters asked me to thank you again for your help." Before Emily could ask how she knew Jack's last name, the woman drove off, leaving her with more questions than answers. What Emily couldn't have known in that moment was that this strange encounter would spark a chain of events that would change her life in ways she never imagined. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the buzzing of her phone jolted Emily awake. Still groggy, she expected maybe a text from a former coworker, someone who said they'd try talking to Ryan. Instead, it was an alert from her building's security system. Multiple vehicles detected in parking area. Confused, Emily tapped the notification. The camera feed opened, and what she saw made her sit up like she'd been shocked. The parking lot was completely packed with military vehicles. Not just one or two, at least 10 Humvees, lined up under the pre-dawn sky. Their headlights lit up the pavement like daylight. Uniformed men and women moved in formation. Some were setting up what looked like a command post. "What the?" Emily whispered, throwing off her blanket. She rushed to the window and peeked through the blinds. Nope. The cameras weren't glitching. Her apartment complex really had been turned into a military staging zone. Then her phone rang, making her jump. The caller ID showed her building manager. "Hello?" she answered, cautiously. "Ms. Walker? This is Jim from the front desk. I'm really sorry to wake you, but, there are military personnel here. They're asking to speak with you. Says it's urgent." "Military personnel?" Emily repeated, brain scrambling. "Did they say what they want?" "No, ma'am. Just that there's a general here. Like, a real general. With stars. Says it can't wait till morning." Emily's hands trembled as she quickly dressed. What could the military possibly want with her? The elevator ride to the lobby felt like it lasted an hour. When the doors finally opened, she stepped out and stopped cold. The lobby was transformed. A dozen uniformed officers stood at attention. At the center was a tall, silver-haired man with stars on his shoulders, speaking quietly to the wide-eyed building manager. As soon as Emily stepped in, every head turned toward her. "Emily Walker?" the silver-haired man asked, approaching. "Yes," she said, her voice much smaller than she meant. "What's going on?" "I'm General Robert Hayes," he said, extending his hand. "I apologize for the early hour and for the dramatic entrance. But when we learned what happened at the quick stop last night, we felt immediate action was necessary." Emily shook his hand, still baffled. "You mean me getting fired?" I don't understand what that has to do with the military." The general glanced at someone behind him. It was Captain Reynolds. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," the general said gently. 5 minutes later, Emily sat on her thrift store couch, still in disbelief. Across from her sat General Hayes, Captain Reynolds, and two other high-ranking officers, right there in her tiny living room at 3:30 in the morning. The surrealness of the moment wasn't lost on her. "Ms. Walker," General Hayes began, "the man you helped last night, the one who told you his name was Jack, is actually Major Jack Winters. He's one of our most decorated Special Forces operatives." Emily blinked. "The blind man?" "Yes. And no," Captain Reynolds said, jumping in. "Major Winters sustained injuries during a classified mission about 3 months ago. He's temporarily blind. There's a scheduled surgery next week that may restore his vision, but until then, he's trying to regain his independence." Another officer added, "He left the base last night without permission. He wanted to prove he could handle things on his own. We had people shadowing him discreetly for safety, but we didn't step in. It was important for his psychological recovery. And that's when we saw you," Reynolds continued. "You treated him with dignity, patience, and kindness. We saw what it cost you." Emily shook her head, struggling to grasp it. "So, you're here because he felt bad that I got fired?" "Deeply," General Hayes confirmed. "When he got back to base and told us what happened, we pulled the quick stop security footage." Emily raised her brows. "You can do that?" The officers exchanged slight, amused looks. "We have certain capabilities," the general said with a diplomatic smile. "And what we saw was a rare display of moral character under pressure, the kind of integrity this world could use more of." "Thank you," Emily said, still unsure what to believe. But why would the military care about some cashier losing her job? General Hayes leaned forward. "Are you familiar with the Military Family Support Division?" Emily shook her head. "It's a specialized unit," he explained. "We provide critical services to military families, especially during deployments, medical crises, and transitions back to civilian life. It's sensitive, human work, and it requires people with empathy, discretion, and strong moral judgment." Captain Reynolds added, "Qualities you demonstrated last night." "There's a current opening on base," General Hayes continued. "Civilian Family Liaison Coordinator. Full benefits. Housing allowance. Starting salary is $65,000 per year." Emily's jaw dropped. That was more than double what she made at the quick stop. "Are you offering me a job?" she asked in disbelief. "We are," the general said, smiling. "Major Winters specifically requested it. And after reviewing your background—" "You looked into my background?" she interrupted, suddenly wary. Standard procedure, Captain Reynolds said calmly. We saw your work history, your volunteer work at your daughter's school, and how you managed your father's care during his illness. Everything pointed to one conclusion. You're the kind of person we want. Emily leaned back, overwhelmed. This doesn't feel real. Things like this, they don't just happen. Sometimes they do, General Hayes said gently. Sometimes a single act of kindness opens doors you didn't even know were there. As the officers began to rise, preparing to leave, Emily finally found her voice again. Wait. Why all of this? Why the middle of the night military convoy? General Hayes paused at the door. Major Winters is one of the most respected men we've ever served with. He's saved more lives than I can count. So when he asks for something, the general smiled slightly. We try to deliver with the appropriate level of impact. He glanced back. Between us? He was very clear. He wanted to make sure we made a proper impression. After they left, Emily stood at her window, watching the military convoy drive off into the early light of dawn. In a few hours, she'd have to pick up Lily and somehow explain the unbelievable story of what just happened. She looked down at the card in her hand, still warm from where she'd been clutching it. $65,000. Benefits, housing, a real career, a chance to help people who needed it. Just because she'd taken 5 minutes to help a blind man buy aspirin and a sandwich. The quick stop was nearly empty when Emily walked through the glass doors at exactly 10:45 a.m. Ryan stood behind the register, looking just as bored and bitter as ever. When he saw her, his posture stiffened and his face darkened. You're not supposed to be here, he said, reaching toward the phone. I'll call the cops if I have to. Emily calmly raised her hands. I'm just here as a customer, Ryan. That's all. His eyes narrowed suspiciously as she grabbed a bottle of water and approached the counter. She noticed a Help Wanted sign taped beside the register. Apparently, it hadn't taken long for them to try replacing her. That'll be $1.79, Ryan muttered. Emily handed over exact change, then lingered. How's the hiring going? Ryan scowled. Not that it's any of your business, but the last 2 quit after 2 days. Nobody wants night shift. Sounds stressful, Emily replied lightly. Look, if you're here to beg for your job back, don't bother, Ryan snapped. Emily smiled. Actually, I'm not. I just came to say thank you. Thank me? Ryan blinked, caught off guard. For firing you. In a way, yes. She pulled out a sleek white business card with a military insignia and slid it across the counter. If you hadn't fired me for helping Major Winters, I never would have been offered this. Ryan picked up the card. His confusion morphed into disbelief as he read the text. Military Family Support Division. This some kind of joke? Not at all, Emily said calmly. The blind man I helped? He's a highly decorated Special Forces officer. His superiors saw the security footage, and they weren't too impressed with how you handled the situation. Color drained from Ryan's face. Security footage? They saw what happened? Every word, Emily confirmed. General Hayes was especially interested in your management style. Ryan set the card down, his fingers trembling. Are you saying the military is monitoring the store? Emily shrugged. I'm not at liberty to discuss operational details. But I can tell you this. Major Winters has a lot of friends in high places. People who care about how veterans are treated. She picked up her water bottle, turned to leave, then paused. Oh? And Ryan, you might want to reconsider your policy on helping disabled customers. You never know who might be watching. As she stepped outside into the sunlight, she heard the unmistakable sound of Ryan frantically dialing the phone behind her. Emily didn't look back. She wasn't angry anymore. It wasn't about revenge, but it was satisfying. "We're really going to live on an army base?" Lily asked for the third time, bouncing excitedly on her bed. Emily smiled as she folded one of her daughter's t-shirts and placed it into a half-packed suitcase. It had been 2 weeks since that surreal morning. They were almost ready for the move. "Yes, sweetie. Our new house is right on base, and you'll go to school there too." "Will there be other kids like me?" Lily asked, her tone suddenly serious. Emily sat down beside her and tucked a loose strand of hair behind the girl's ear. "Lots of them. Kids whose parents served the military, just like I will now." "And the man you helped, he's a real hero, right?" "Major Winters?" Emily nodded. "Yes, he is. You'll meet him tomorrow." Lily wrapped her small arms around her mother's neck. "I knew you were special, Mom. Dad always said you had a heart bigger than the whole world." Emily swallowed hard, the lump in her throat impossible to ignore. Mark had been gone for 4 years now. A construction accident that made her a widow at 28. But sometimes Lily still remembered the things he used to say. "I'm not special, honey," Emily whispered. "I just did what anyone should do." "That's what makes you special," Lily replied, with the innocent wisdom only a 9-year-old can have. "You do the things everyone should do, but don't." Emily hugged her daughter tight. She thought about how wildly their lives had shifted. One small act of kindness in a convenience store had set off a chain reaction that completely transformed their future. Sometimes the universe finds ways to return kindness when you least expect it. And sometimes doing the right thing in your darkest hour leads to the brightest new beginning. Love this story? Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.